Hey guys, how you going? Welcome to the Positive Experience podcast, where we look at the good, the bad and the ugly in living your best life. Today's segment is called In the Trenches, where we look behind the scenes at what's happening in the clinic. Hey guys, how you going? The boys have assembled here for our monthly roundtable chat, and today we're going to review, in the month of November, men's health. And the way this roundtable is going to go is very much an informal discussion from 4 different viewpoints, and we hope you enjoy the ride. So what I'm going to start with is posing the question, what does men's health mean to you? I'm going to pass it over to Avi and see what he has for us. Thanks, Avi.
Men's health, it could be a number of things. I'm a big fan of, you've probably seen my blog post regarding Movember, so that's going to be uploaded very soon. Because they cover all different types of men's health, especially the mental health side, which doesn't get touched on a lot, especially in the male sides. I feel like we're not as chatty, or I am personally, I'm not that chatty about my emotions, and I don't really discuss the deeper feelings with anyone else. And I feel that's the case with a lot of other males. You guys may be different, but probably can expand on that. And then that's why our suicide rates, especially in Australia, are quite high. And 3 out of 4 Australians is actually male related. And so that's pretty scary numbers. And I feel like we just need to ask the conversation more, or just change that stigma around the emotional side of things and be more open. Because I feel when I'm around my friends and stuff, like when you start to touch about those things, everyone jokes it aside, or they like laugh about it and they're like, why are you talking about that? Just have a beer, or just do this, but it never really gets spoken about, and those feelings just build up inside. So I feel like that's something that needs to be changed in everywhere. It doesn't have to be just the males, but I find the females are the complete opposite, and they chat about those things straight away, and it's just common for them to talk about it. But if a male does it, then we just get told, "I'll stop being a sook," or
Bad enough, or
pretty much. So
walls come up.
that's what men's health for me, for the mental side of things, means to me. Just need to make it more open and just allow everyone to discuss what they're feeling and be accepted, and get rid of that stigma around it. So that's probably one side of the men's health that I'll probably ask Mike and see what he thinks on that.
You know, I was I'm going to cut in here rudely, Mike. You know, with this, you know, we're all Australian blokes. Let's say, you know, we've grown up in Australia, and you know, the opportunities and the frameworks and the just, you know, the great environment that we all grow up in. But at the same time, we come from different heritage and cultures as well. And you know, I wonder what that would look like, because you know, in some cultures they may look at this very strongly in a supportive sort of light. But then in other times, it's even more so, the walls come up, and, you know, this is just one of those things for blokes you just can't talk about, you know. So I wonder if that's something that, like in my Pacific Island community, traditionally you don't talk about these things openly, you know, behind closed doors. And even behind closed doors, it's not really addressed. It's kind of, you sort of skim over the surface layer, and then as soon as you can, everyone looks for the exits. You know, it's a real sort of awkward thing to talk about. So yeah, I just wanted to see, you know, as you guys are bringing up your own points, if you think that maybe culture has something to do with it. You know, what do you reckon, Mike?
That's actually a massive one. I think similar to how you mentioned your Pacific Island background, me coming from an Egyptian background, that's also a big thing that we noticed as we got older, that it wasn't something that was spoken about, definitely with the older gens. So for us, there's a big emphasis now to make that norm, even amongst the groups that I know. A few of the older guys kind of in the next stage of life are really trying to make that the norm in their families, and even striking those conversations with the older generation, you know, making sure that they're taking care of their minds, making sure they're speaking to the right people, or even just speaking to people in general around them about these things, to at least unload it and have these things addressed, instead of them being built up, like Avi mentioned earlier. So yeah, I definitely think there's a massive cultural influence there.
Perfect. And you know, we've got a Indian perspective, you know, we've got a Polynesian perspective, we've got a Greek perspective. What would your thoughts be, Con, coming from you know, the Greek, say, perspective?
I would agree with all the comments thus far, and especially, I suppose, my background, even though Greece is a small country, we come from the north, and there's history of sort of persecution through the centuries. So my ancestors actually developed like a warrior mentality. So they're extremely tough and stoic, and Avi can probably understand that because I think you come from a Sikh background. Yeah. So there's this very sort of reservedness, a very stoic, and not just the men, but the women are quite strong and deal with a lot. And we tend to not talk about it till it's bad because we don't want to burden or worry anyone. So it's almost like, not that it's frowned upon, because when you do come out with it, you actually, you get support, a lot of support, but you feel for your family members being concerned about you, because the sense is very community orientated, which I think all of us can relate to. It's not the individual. So it's almost like you're worrying about worrying others.
Yeah.
That's why you don't bring it up.
Yeah. It almost seems selfish if you like bring your problems, you know. That's kind of the sense almost.
Absolutely. So, but I find when you do bring it up, there is support. You're not ridiculed, but it takes a lot for someone, like literally, you know, you'll be in hospital, for example, or heading towards hospital before you bring it up, which is not right either.
I agree. I think, you know, a lot of the lenses that we can see life, you know, being in Australia, but then also having a bit of a background to fall back on, it can give us like preloaded ideas and language patterns to speak about. But it's this little corner of the public conversation that is now starting to come to light, you know, with what Mike wrote about in his blog post, Are You Okay? And Avi with Movember, great initiatives, you know. And I think the other thing too to leverage off the mental health is also physical health, you know. So Con and I spoke about some things that really affect men's health, which is prostate cancer. And I was talking a lot about heart disease. And, you know, this week, Diego Maradona passed away, you know, and I grew up watching, you know, The Little Magician. I saw reruns on VHS tapes of The Hand of God, you know, and gone before his time. And there's a lot of people around us as well that are affected. This week, 3 people in my networks have passed away from heart disease well before their time, late 50s, early 60s. And it's a shocker, you know. So I think with men's health and talking about mental health disease and also chronic health diseases that we can talk about now to preempt things going the wrong way, I think is a big part of the conversation too. It's a big passion of mine personally, you know. So you know, if you're thinking about the research that you presented on prostate cancer there, Con, or anything else that you thought was interesting, you know, what would you like to comment on with the physical health, you know, being busy yourself?
I think going on with what Avi was saying, I think there is an expectation, even though we say, yes, come forward, there's an expectation in Australia and to that extension UK, because I worked there for 5 years, that you just get on with it. And I find our health systems are more receptive towards women than men. And it's great that we've got a lot of services for women. That's great. We've got the Women's Hospital, we've got Mercy Hospital. But I just think men get neglected. And I think that needs to sort of change. Because like Avi said, it's a high suicide rate. In actual fact, when I did psychology a few years ago, there were quite a number of diseases, and women, saying about, for example, I can't remember the exact number, women were higher in about 5, equal about 3. The only thing that men were disproportionately higher was suicide.
Wow.
Because they usually don't, and they usually, I think, get neglected or fear about bringing a problem forward. Or the fact is what Avi was saying in Uleki, just get on with it. and it's quite tragic actually, because I think Australia is very high up. I think probably second position, I might be wrong, on young men's suicide. Avi, would that be correct?
Yeah, we're up there, especially during this COVID time and a lot of other things going on. Yeah, it's crazy. It's all around the world. Apparently, in my blog post, I put down that every minute, every day, there's a person that's a male dying from suicide. So around the world. So it's literally right now this meeting, there'll be 30 people that done suicide. So it's very high numbers, and this kind of stuff can actually improve, and just by speaking up. And I find that's the biggest issue with us, because females, I feel they can talk about it to their friends. It's a norm. You go around when you get having a girls' night, you talk about that stuff. Where the guys, it's just pretty much you talk about other stuff that even if you're feeling down, you show up. No, I'm fine. I'm the man of the house or whatever. I'm doing okay. Let's just have some drinks and something like that. Yeah.
So I think there's, we all agree it's a problem, So if we look at tangible things that in our own experience, perhaps, or if there's things that you've come across that can help people, it might be a good idea that we talk about, what are good solutions that you've come across that can help men speak up and, help bring the conversation forward. It doesn't have to be big fancy ways, just even simple ways that you can implement it yourself. Would there be anything you recommend there, RV?
I highly encourage just talking to someone. It doesn't have to be a family member or someone close to you. Me personally, I'm seeing a psychologist with the stuff that's happened this year, and it's made a big difference, because I don't feel confident speaking within my family about this kind of stuff, because I feel like I'm letting them down. And as you know, in my culture, the man is supposed to be the man of the house, and I can't be shown like fragile. So having someone to talk to, and I feel a lot better when I open up, actually speak about these things and how I'm feeling. So just simply having someone that you can chat to, even a psychologist, because that's the expertise. It doesn't have to be a psychologist in particular, but at the same time, you can get a mental health care plan from Medicare, and you can get up to 10 sessions in saying that.
Perfect.
So that's something you can, and you don't have to really splash out some cash, and it's something that everyone should consider. So that's one of the services, yeah.
Mate, that's awesome. Appreciate you sharing that, man. So that's really heavy. Mike, have you got any examples of professional or personal things that you found to be helpful?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that it sounds like there's a theme going across everything that's being mentioned so far, that there's a problem once things are kept inside and you're really closed off. And then there's always a solution when things are let out and just shared or just exercised in any way. Just going on from what Avi was saying, I feel like letting things out doesn't only have to be through communication or through speaking to another person or a psychologist. I think you can also let things out physically, kind of with physical activity at the gym. So for me personally, I noticed this going through uni, that when I would neglect my body, then that would also affect my mind. So I try to put that first, especially my first year of full-time work. That was an important thing for me to do, was make sure I invest in the things that keep my body healthy, because in turn it will keep my mind healthy as well.
Perfect. And just to touch on some personal stories too, like a way that one of many ways that I manage my happiness is by catching up with people that are close to me and that I love and trust, and they my support. So one of them are the boys, the guys I grew up with. I've known them 15, 20 years, and we're in a stage of life where we have young families and lots of things going on. So friendships can start to move a bit further down the list of priorities. And if you have a life partner and you have that relationship, if you have work colleagues, if you have other friends that you meet along the way, they're all great, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, when a bunch of fellas get together and it's a fishing trip away on a weekend, that's a different type of happiness too. So I think it's important that you try, and I'd recommend and prioritize just a weekend retreat with the lads. And where we are now, being mid-30s, heading towards our 40s, it's a quiet weekend away, and it's tentatively every February it's organised, and it's just a weekend. And this is our fourth annual boys weekend that we're organising for 2021, and it's just something that we can look forward to. It's just one weekend a year. If you can't make it, one of the guys can't make it because he's expecting a baby, but it's a good way for the guys to get away and chat and just talk about work, life, and if you can maintain those relationships, because I think making new friends is awesome, but keeping old friendships is a different type of happiness too. So I think for you guys that may be neglecting friendships, it might be something just to flick a text over and just say hello. And then, hello is a very powerful open-ended question. And then you can, strengthen those bonds again. So that's the way I like to practice good mental health. So Con, is there something that you'd like to share too or something you've observed professionally or personally that can help?
I tend to find that men have a small, close circle of friends. Like, I'm an introvert by nature, but I think even extroverts, if they go to someone they trust, it's usually a small circle of friends. And going on with what you said, Lekis, I find myself sometimes leaving too long before I touch base with friends because there's so much going on. And I think that's a mistake, because the times that I have caught up with very close friends, and if we talk about topics, there's sincere and there's openness. I choose who I speak to openly, but someone I trust, I am very open. And I also think the power of talking to people that are older and wiser and have gone through similar things and can offer in one simple sentence encouragement, perspective, clarity, and in that gives you a lot of strength. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Sage advice as always. So, I think men's health is a discussion that's coming to the forefront. Most recently with great initiatives like Are You OK and Movember, and this is a call to arms to continue the great work in your own little way personally. And if you have someone in your network or in your periphery that's sort of starting to drop off the radar a little bit, the least you could do would be just to reach out and say hello, little text message. So I guess the parting comments today here is that don't feel like you're alone. At the same time, it's never too late. Just put your hand out, fellas, and ask for the help, whether it's through Medicare or if it's through personal support systems or if it's through being a part of a community like in a gym setup. There's lots of avenues for you to explore to get the support that you need, and it starts with just speaking up. So those are my final thoughts. Anything else to add before we finish up today, gents? No.
I was just going to pose a quick question. Let's say, because we did touch on reach out to your friends and stuff. So there's some people out there that are a lot more alone and they don't really have that connection or social aspect. And I wouldn't say like they don't have that many friends or they don't have a friend to reach out. Is there any services you guys know that people can get in contact? Like personally, I'm happy for someone to reach out to me and just have a conversation if they feel like they don't have anyone. But it's something that also needs to be looked at as well. Would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, look, that's a pretty hard one. Sorry, Colin, what were you going to say?
I'm the same. I think if people, even that you don't know necessarily, if they know that you care about them, even just spending time listening, you can build bridges. And my philosophy is that, what are you doing for someone, not necessarily that just to help out. Because I think particularly in Anglo-Saxon cultures, what I realise is we're kind of little islands on our own. But when you go back to our background, it's very community orientated. And I think that's something we can learn. And we don't need to sacrifice. Like I do sometimes just volunteer work for a lady in MS. I just volunteer, I don't charge her. But just that I'm going there, that really lights her up. But it also blesses me because it sort of keeps me honest about what principles do you espouse. So I like what you said, Arby, a lot.
Thanks, Con. Yeah. I think that the hard thing here is if someone's really, really struggling and they don't feel alone, they're really alone and they're isolated. I think there's a lot of professional support out there, but like Arby said, I think we all like to think that we're quite friendly people. So feel free to just reach out anytime. Absolutely. So do you have any final comments there, Mike, for us?
I was going to say, from what Avi was asking, that there are a lot of even online services that you can just send emails or anonymous messages if you don't want to identify yourself. So if you're someone that is looking for someone to have an objective view on your situation without asking anyone that has anything emotionally invested, and perhaps you just want to get, some of your thoughts out, then I think there's a lot of other call services or online services you can utilize.
Perfect. Okay, so that'll do us for our roundtable for this November episode on men's health. Obviously, we're touching on a lot of surface area stuff. There's a lot more deeper conversations yet to be had, but we hope you guys enjoyed our roundtable discussion today with the 4 gents. We're getting ready for a Christmas party tomorrow, and look out for that on our socials. So have a great weekend for you guys when you see this. We'll speak to you guys soon. See you guys.